the community aspect of working out with people, competing in the same workout at the same time, and just that like common bond you experience. And it applied so much to wrestling because wrestling is very similar. For me, it's always been it started out as like I have to get in shape, right? Because wrestlers are in shape. So when I was a kid and I'm looking at, I want to do this thing. What are the things that these wrestlers do? Oh, okay. Well, they look a certain way. Obviously, that's the first thing you figure out. So I was like, okay, I got to look like I'm in good shape. But then as the business, so I started working out and then obviously developed a kind of a love relationship with it, like where I just like it became sort of therapeutic to go to the gym. In like an addiction, maybe, in some ways, to get that kind of feeling and to feel like you accomplished something for the day physically. And like the deeper I got into that feeling, like the harder I pushed, because the more you kind of do it, then you reach that like level where you're like, oh, I got to push further. Oh, I got to push further. Oh, I got to push further to get that same kind of high that you would get from going to the gym. And that's sort of where I fell into CrossFit, where I just felt like I had plateaued with my regular fitness program. And I was like, I got to do something different. I got to change this up, man. I was already kind of like basically like supersetting everything at the gym anyway, just to like get a sweat and some cardio in, and then like sort of fell into CrossFit. I had a friend about for conditioning. And he brought me to a CrossFit gym, and this was in like 2010, I want to say. And, I was like, dang, this is insane. Like I just did a simple, like little Cindy. So like a little, like, pull up, push up, pull up, push up, squat workout with a run. And like, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand anything what was happening to me. I did the first run. I remember like I ran 400. I came back. I did like one set of Cindy. And then I went out for my second run and everything just stopped like halfway.
You started walking?
Yeah. I started walking because I was like, well, all my muscles were tense, dude. I didn't know how to breathe. I didn't understand anything about like what oxygen was doing in my body to my muscles, like the blood flow, anything like that. I had no clue about what was going on. I came back and I was like, oh yeah, we're in. This is it. Let's do this from now on. And then I just practiced CrossFit for like the next 15 years now or something like that. 10, 15 years, somewhere in there. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the sport of it, the competition, the community of it. Obviously you just don't really get those things at like with headphones in at a gym, just kind of getting the pump. So like the community aspect of working out with people, competing in the same workout at the same time. And just that like common bond you experience. And it applied so much to wrestling because wrestling is very similar, right? Like you're working against each other in CrossFit, like if you're kind of racing, but you're not. You're sort of at the end of the day when the bell rings or when the buzzer sounds, like you're together. You know what I mean? You're in it together. And so there's this kind of like cool synergy in that competition, not competition type vibe with professional wrestling and CrossFit. And so I found it exhilarating to train that way. It helped my cardio like go through the roof. The business was also transitioning. My business was also transitioning out of like giant, plodding monsters into a much faster sort of pace. And I'm 6'2", about 6'2", like 220. So like I'm a bigger guy for like regular size folks, but like in wrestling, I'm kind of like middle of the road size. Like I'm not a giant, So I was like, this can be my wheelhouse. If I can be a bigger, like a medium sized guy, not a small guy. I'm not like a Rey Mysterio. Like I'm not diminutive, but like if I can be kind of like all go at my size, I'll be able to really kind of go with the shifting landscape of our industry. And it sort of goes along with, I don't know, like the attention span of the generation now where everything's shorter, everything's faster. They kind of don't have the patience for like things to be drawn out as long unless you really put the effort into making something special. So it all sort of kind of crescendoed at the right time for me. And fitness was a huge part of that. But with moving at that pace, I had to be able to keep up. You can't look like you're dead tired when you're out there. Right. You got to be able to push. So it really all worked out well for me. It also helped my joints, helped my mobility. Even now when I'm kind of doing less CrossFit as I've gotten older, I still have mobility from doing years of that I didn't have even in my early 20s, that I have now in my almost 40s that I just wouldn't have had I not overhead squatted for 15 years.
Seth, why do you think there isn't like a more significant uptick in the CrossFit training methodology specifically, and like high level professional athletes? Like, you're a high level professional athlete. Tyson Baggett, or Bagent, he's been making some headlines lately. Quarterback for the Bears, the Chicago Bears. He's a CrossFit athlete. But aside from that, like, you haven't really heard. Is it just that we're not hearing that that's the type of training they're doing? But you don't hear NBA players, MLB players, more football players that are doing the methodology CrossFit for the sport. What do you think's behind that? Or is it just that that's what they're doing and we don't hear about it?
I mean, the thing is, they just work with athletic trainers. When you work at a high level, they just doing what's told to them. And a lot of that, like, a lot of it is in a CrossFit style without the name CrossFit. When I've done like kind of like little workouts with these athletes, NBA is a little different. Their body types are wild. Like, they're not built for CrossFit training. They're like aliens. You know what I mean? They're not built for their bodies just ain't. And the sport ain't. You see some of them getting muscular, but I mean, that game has evolved in a wild way. So I don't even want to get into that too much. But you look at, like, especially power athletes like football and stuff like that. They always have trained in a way that's very similar to CrossFit, right? They've done it in shorter spurts. So they train specifically, like sport specific. And so even the bigger guys, like I trained with Lane Johnson, who is a tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. And this dude's a giant. He's a giant. So he trains like specifically for being an offensive tackle, nothing else. Like, what does he need to do? He needs to be able to push hard and fast, and he needs to be able to squat like quickly and then move like his feet with agility. And that's like it. So I think that's all his training, but he does it in such a way that he's still getting, because he doesn't want to go walk on a treadmill. Like, he doesn't want to go do cardio for 45 minutes or whatever. So he still does it in a way where he's getting that kind of cardiovascular stimulus while getting the kind of like muscular response that he's looking for. So I find that a lot of power athletes, while not doing like CrossFit per se, like they're probably not doing, say, Chad or whatever, right? They're not doing like 1,000 box step ups for time. They're not doing hero wads and stuff like that. But like the sort of less is more, or least or most in the least amount of time, shall I say, mindset that CrossFit sort of has adopted is really always sort of been there. They just don't brand it that way, I guess.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Seth, I don't know how much you could dive into this, but I'd love to hear your feedback on. So again, when I went to WrestleMania, and I had never been to, like, I went to WrestleMania at Levi Stadium, and I remember that I watched the ladder match, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen, I think, in my life. Yep. Like, you got me great tickets. I'm sitting like right like on the stage or whatever, like right on the side. And these guys are climbing ladders and hitting each other. And it is just so aggressive. But obviously there's one of the things I don't know what you're allowed to talk about or not, is like how that flow works. Like, I'd love for you to share just a little bit about like how athletic these WWE superstars are, because you're out there training, you're doing flips, you're doing this and that. But dude, you guys are actually falling. You guys are actually going through this. And like, and the fact that you told me a long time ago, like, there might be some idea of who's going to do well and who isn't, but like that you guys just go out and like choreograph this together. Like, I don't know if we could dive in. I'd love to hear like how that process works, if you're allowed to talk about it, because I just think it's like so special what you do for work.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's an art form, no doubt about it. It's very much Cirque du Soleil without the intense repetition. So like, if you look at like a Cirque du Soleil show, like you go to a Cirque show and you're like, holy cow, from start to finish, how did this happen? Like, how did they put this together? Who designed these elements? And then of course, the acrobatics, you go, how is this even possible? Like, well, they've done it through repetition. Like, they've practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced it. And so that's kind of where we're at, but without all the levels of practice. So we're like, part Cirque du Soleil, but also part like stand-up comedy. So like we've got, bits, right, that we can do and go in and out of where we expect certain responses. But also we have to be able to pivot if those responses aren't exactly what we imagine. And so when you're in the ring, you have to be able to communicate and call things what we call on the fly, like just do things, be able to talk to whoever you're in there with and change things up, change the pace of the matchup, get people in different positions, and make sure that you're telling the best story for your audience. Now, the ladder match you mentioned, that's a different animal, right? So if there's 7 guys and a bunch of ladders and crazy stunts, the amount of on the fly going to be very slim. Very slim. Like that match is going to be talked about probably in advance, maybe a day or two, a week or two, and they'll go over pretty much everything they're going to do in sort of an ABCD order. But that's, it's just a safety level is, paramount. You got to make sure that people come out of that not, they're going to get hurt because yes, we are falling. They are real ladders. Accidents do happen. You get a lot of bumps and bruises, like, you come out of those ladder matches and your back is just beat to pieces. Your forearms are just jacked up and people throwing ladders at you. And, if you've fallen off the top of a ladder onto a ring, which, rings they got like this much padding and then it's just steel and wood underneath it. It's not comfortable. And like your body acclimates, sort of over time, but like it never feels good. You're never like, oh, that was an excellent fall from a 10-foot ladder.